Hello and welcome to Where Are They Now with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Joining me today is Mark Stephen, who is the play-by-play voice of the Calgary Stampeders and a longtime sports broadcaster in the city. Thanks for joining us today, Mark.
Yeah, good. Good to catch up with you, Mario.
Well, let me start, Mark, by asking, a lot of people don't know what you do besides being the voice of the Stampeders. So what are you doing these days?
Well, that's a seasonal job. It keeps you
Yeah.
very busy in season and some stuff in the off season. But right now I'm working for the station doing talk shows and a few special features like that because the station had underwent some changes and needed some people. So I'd been previously a full-time employee there. Now I'm a contract employer, both doing the talk show and football when they play. So, enough to keep me busy. Maybe it's not quite full-time, but I'm busy enough, I can tell you that.
What's it been like, Mark, to not have a CFL this season for you?
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, you build both your life and sort of get used to the games, the buildup of games, the excitement, big moments like opening day, and then Labor Day, and then the playoffs leading up to the Grey Cup, which fortunately the Stamps have been in a lot of. So
Yeah.
seen a lot of Grey Cups, been around a lot. So yeah, it was pretty crushing. It was a huge void. Let's not kid anyone. For not just me, of course, but for an awful lot of people, the people that work there, the players, and thousands of fans. I get regular, messages and emails, people saying, "What's going on? What do you know?" And I tell them, but up until the last few weeks, there wasn't much to say.
Yeah. So let's go back in time a bit, Mark. How long have you been doing the play-by-play for the Stamps?
1996, I took over there, and color analyst the first year was Marshall Toner, and his business life got too busy, and ever since then, it's been Greg Peterson. So we are the longest-serving broadcast tandem in league history, and really enjoy it, and so does Greg.
So you remember the first game you called?
Oh yeah, I remember it was at McMahon Stadium. It was a preseason game. That's the worst game to do because each team has 75 players,
Yeah.
and you know that within a couple of days, a third of them are going to be gone. But which ones? I don't know who they are. So you got to pretend like everybody's going to play. So yeah, it was a preseason game against Saskatchewan, and yeah, it was a little intimidating. You wanted to get off to a right start because you only get one first chance. And I know people say it's, quote, just an exhibition game, and I get it. The Grey Cup isn't awarded based on the outcome of that, but people tune in for the first time and will form impressions and go from there. So yeah, I felt I was a little nervous about it. Fortunately, the nerves per se have gone, but the sense of anticipation before every game is still there.
Okay, super. So let's even go back further. How did you get involved in the media, initially, and when?
Well, back when I was in university, I worked at the radio station and also did the public address announcing at basketball games because I was a basketball fan. I did hear there was a part-time opening at CTV, then known as CFCN,
Yeah.
and Channel 4. And I got it based on some people helped me out at the university. I got the position. So there I was working part-time at CFCN doing weekend reporting and on-air broadcasts. And that's when I did an awful lot of sports broadcasting. So it went from there. And obviously I have Ken Newlands to thank for that because I'm sure there were people with more experience, but I was right there and was ambitious and excited about it. And here we are.
Yeah, so quite a long time you knew what you wanted to do, right? And
Yeah, is at CFCN and both radio and TV. Then went to Regina for a year, and then came back and worked for the Cannons, doing a lot of the front office work and some of the broadcasting there. And then ever since then, pretty much continuously, it's been at 770.
okay, when you look at the actual play-by-play stuff, what's the toughest thing about doing that job?
Well, a couple of things. I guess, just making sure you can stay on top of the play and not lose your concentration. You really have to concentrate for 3 hours. It's not something you can get distracted with. So it's hard. It's sometimes people come into the booth and I don't even know they're there. So
Yeah.
to visit. And so it's the concentration level, it's the work away from it. Like, it's nice that people tune in when the ball is kicked off, but there's a lot of other stuff that goes in, talking to people and getting little tidbits that may or may not be used. And sometimes you just have to pull them out. So it's just the constant awareness of being on top of it, maintaining your presence. I mean, physically, sometimes there's a challenge when there's a big pile up of players right in front of the bench on the far side of the field, but you can sort that out. And most of the stadiums are pretty good with a couple of exceptions, but the big challenge is just to stay focused and right on top of it. Fortunately, there haven't been too many games during the time of the Stampeders that have been one-sided with the Stampeders on the wrong end of it, so you haven't had to try and keep your interest up. That's one thing I can safely say. They've been really good teams for the vast majority of the time.
And, looking at the play-by-play side of things, have you ever wanted to do other sports? And if so, what sport would you want to do?
Well, on a full-time basis, probably not. Football's fine, but I have done a little, fortunately had been able to do a little of everything. I did do the Wranglers for a few years. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. I did the Roughnecks on Shaw for a couple of years and helped out with the Cannons when they were here. I wasn't the full-time broadcaster, but I helped out when circumstances dictated. And then, in addition to that, I did for Shaw as well, some basketball, some of their high school coverage. So I've done a little of everything, but in terms of the schedule and just being part of Calgary and the community, football is just tremendous. So no real great ambitions to go a lot further or do much more, but wouldn't turn it down either.
Okay, going to put you on the spot. What's that, out of all those years, is there one broadcast you remember that you had your biggest flub?
Flub? Oh.
Maybe you haven't had
flub.
any.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say none, but obviously there's some games you feel better about. Probably I'll say the most difficult game to do was the game just after Wally Buono left, and it was the Stampeders' first appearance in Vancouver, and they were being slaughtered for the Stampeders 48-4, and it really wasn't that close to the game. I got to tell you, the scoreboard lied. The Stampeders were getting demolished, and the Stampeders, there was nothing to say once the third quarter rolled around. They were so out of it. The only thing that was left was Wally Buono was pointing at the scoreboard because the owner was in the building. Calvin Anderson, then a Lion, threw a football at the side. So that was difficult to do. Maybe I flubbed because I lost concentration because the game itself was not in dispute at all.
Yeah. So when you look at over the years, we've had tons of great teams, right? Stampeders. Any particular team that stands out in your memory as, for whatever reason, whether they were the best or the best to cover? Or...
Well, I guess I'd have to go back not too far, 2016. That team set a Stampeder record, 31 points in the season, and it certainly was catastrophic that they didn't win the Grey Cup that year. That probably was just the best team. You just had a sense that they were going to go out and just kick some people around, and the game was theirs for the taking because they were so good. There's been a lot of other good teams, 2008 with John Huffnagel, and let's not forget 2005, Tom Higgins' first year, because the team had been, so under the water for 3 straight years, and he brought them back, and there was suddenly excitement and life around the team. Obviously, the Grey Cup team of 98 and 99 were really good as well, and so was 2000. So those are some of the more memorable teams that stood out as well.
What about player-wise? Who has been your, I guess, most memorable players over those years?
Oh, I can say, there's a number of players that you get talking to. Obviously, you talk to all of the quarterbacks at various levels. I spent a lot of time both at practice and just on the side talking to Henry Burris. He's about as accommodating as it gets. I mean, Alex Singleton, very recent player, very accommodating too. Nick Lewis was easy to start, hard to slow down, but all very well intentioned, his talk. So he was tremendous. Jeff Garcia, like I say, was tremendous as well. And, a lot of those guys were fine. Some of the other players that come to mind, Calvin Anderson, I enjoyed talking to him. He didn't say a lot, but I enjoyed talking to him as well. And, so many of those guys. And, now it's nice to be able to call them up like a Joe Fleming and just talk to them. And I've done that on my talk show, just to hear what they're doing and
Yeah.
hear what their post-football life is like.
Do you keep in touch with a lot of the players right now, in this kind of hiatus situation that we're
What?
in?
No, it's been hard because you can't even go to the stadium, and
Yeah.
everything's done by Zoom. I mean, and the vast majority of the stuff when you talk to the players, it's more background stuff and personal stuff that may come out. There's sometimes you have to stand right there with a microphone in their face. I get it, and that's to ask about what's going on. But I prefer just to be around, talk to guys away from it. Maybe not to grill them on every single play of the last game or anything, but just more personal and what's going on. So I guess I try to stay in touch with a lot of guys, but it's been impossible this year because can't
Yeah.
even get in the stadium. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly. So
yeah,
when's the last time you set foot in the stadium?
Grey Cup 19. That's it. That's it because it's been closed, right? Actually, yeah, that was it.
What I miss being there, eh?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if I'd been by it, but even for the draft, usually they have a little room for us, but we couldn't this year. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I walked out, I went into the Winnipeg room, talked to a couple of guys I knew, got on the train and came home.
Okay, I'm going to have a little fun with you here, Mark, and bear in mind this is strictly your opinion, so there's no
Okay.
right or wrong answers. But
Okay.
best Stampeder coach ever.
I guess you'd have to say Wally Buono, just based on the longevity, 3 Grey Cups, 153 wins. But there's only one team in the league where John Hufnagel wouldn't be number one, and that's this team here. So no disrespect. We'd have to say Wally Buono, just given the longevity, all but 1 year in the playoffs, and every year they were a threat, save for the last year he was here to
Yeah.
win it all, and 3 times they did.
What about best player ever?
In Stampeder history or that I've broadcast here?
Stampeder history.
Still remains Wayne Harris after all these years. He's a guy that the stats weren't kept as fully as they are today, but his ability to hit, to react, to tackle, I saw some of them, but just talking to some of the people, he was truly amazing. But I do have to say, there's a guy right now that is closing the ranks pretty good. If Bo Levi Mitchell wins another Grey Cup, or an MVP or both, I think you might have to have a serious conversation about that. He's very accomplished, but today it remains Wayne Harris.
Okay, super. What about the most eccentric Stampeder that you've encountered?
Oh, there's a few that were kind of out there. Eddie Freeman was a defensive lineman that played here 2009, 2010. He's another one of those guys, at least with Nick Lewis, there, when he talked, he was going somewhere. I'm not sure where Eddie came from or where he was going to. He was gentle, he was kind, he was nice, but he couldn't always comprehend what direction he was going in. So I would rank him as a little bit of an eccentric, a well-meaning, pleasant eccentric, but he was a little different, I got to say that. So he would probably qualify as a little eccentric.
Okay. Now, Mark, you're from Calgary, right?
Yep.
Originally? Okay.
Holy Cross Hospital.
Oh, there you go. I was going to ask you just about the importance of sports in this city. You've lived it, you've seen it. Can you talk a little bit about why sports is so important to the fabric of this city?
Well, we just touched on it a minute ago about the lack of a CFL season. The big time heritage professional teams become a real touch point and rallying point. And there was a lot of people rallying when the Flames had their August playoff run, which was odd watching hockey when it's 33 degrees outside. But it's a rallying point and a touch point for the city, and people have truly missed it. It's something to do, something to unite them. The other teams as well, such as the Hitmen and the Roughnecks, same thing. They just don't have the heritage of the Flames and the Stampeders. Then you get into, the amateur and local and university sports. It's similar, just a slightly lower scale, and the participation sports. So I think it's part of the fabric and just unites everyone and brings everybody together and gives a common purpose. And, I've had the privilege, probably the biggest highlight of all the time doing the Stampeders is being able to host those rallies at and around City Hall. That's amazing. And I certainly can see that it brings the city together when you have thousands of people out there all celebrating a Stampeder win. And there'd be something very significant should the Flames win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. So when you look at the play-by-play part of it. Did you have any play-by-play announcers that you looked up to?
Well, quite a few, I guess. First, I listen even today to a lot of different announcers just to see what they do and how they do it. I guess from way back when, Eric Bishop, I might recall him. He did an awful lot of Stampeders, and that's who I grew up listening to. So his passion and his insight was certainly something there. And in later life, we talked almost daily, so that was really nice. And he gave me some advice. Obviously, I grew up listening to Joe Carberry as well. I mean,
Oh, wow.
people know him as the chuck wagon guy, and that I get it. But he also did football way back when, did hockey, so I listened to him. I listened on the radio as well. There's a guy named Bill King. He used to do the Warriors in basketball and the Oakland Raiders and the Oakland Athletics. He, a very versatile and capable broadcaster. And so those would be, and some of the big ones in terms of play-by-play, actually. Obviously, I watch TV, and with kind of a critical eye, but an open mind as well. Or listen to the radio. I just say, what did this guy do? That really sounded good. Maybe I can do that. A very recent example, I was listening on Sunday to that Raiders New York Jets game, which was an absolute catastrophic ending. But we were just by coincidence driving around hearing the New York Jets broadcaster. That's as close to anybody's head exploding on the radio that I've ever heard, but he did it really well. And it was really good. So you can learn right up to today as recently as Sunday.
And how long do you want to continue doing this, Mark?
Well, because it's seasonal, it's fairly, and it's compact. There's not a lot of travel. The station has, a couple or three more years left on their contract. I'm sounding vague because I don't know what they're going to do with this year. But, why don't we just see where it goes from there? I think I still got health, still got ability, but, one day, you have to look beyond the football stadium to see what's out there. So those are some things that I think about. And, it's just something to take, but it's, pleasurable, enjoyable. So it'd be, be tough to leave the day I do.
And when there's the old saying, a lot of people talk about how, if you enjoy your work, it's like you never work a day in your life. Have you felt that during your
Yeah,
career?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say, it's just things that you're used to, and you're used to it too.
Yeah.
You have to work some offbeat hours and this and that. And, the funniest reaction that I got is like, it doesn't matter to me. Sometimes you have to go in late at night, but other people look at you strange. And I say, well, what are you going to do tonight? No, I'll sit and watch TV. Well, if you're going to watch TV, somebody's got to be on the TV, right? So,
Yeah.
and who is that person? So that's just a mindset and a lifestyle that you get into. So it's fine, and just worked out well. Yeah.
Okay, super. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today, Mark.
Good. Really enjoyed it, and we'll stay in touch. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. That was Mark Stephen, who is the play-by-play voice for the Calgary Stampeders and a longtime sports broadcaster in Calgary. This has been Where Are They Now with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Thanks for joining us today.